Welcome to Mormon Book Reviews, where an evangelical encounters the restoration. I am your host, Stephen Pinecker, but this is actually a hybrid of Mormon Book Reviews and Mormon Media Reviews. And I have on camera, for the first time ever, all 5 people who have been co-hosts on Mormon Book Reviews / MMR. I want to welcome you all to the program. Welcome.
Good to be here, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So we're going to have a fun time today. And, this is just kind of an idea that I had was I thought, well, New Year's is coming up. And Rebecca and I kind of did an end of year retrospective for our Christmas episode last week. So we thought we're going to do a little bit of what we did last year, this past year, as in our collaborations. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But then we're also going to give you some previews about what's coming up on Mormon Book Reviews and maybe some events and stuff as well that are forthcoming. And then we're going to have each one of you kind of preview a little bit about we can expect for 2023 for your channels. So let's see. Let's go, Rebecca Bibliotheca. You are my frequent co-host, and I just want to tell you it's been a great fun time that we've been having with each other. So real quick, what was your favorite part of being a co-host on Mormon Book Reviews, Mormon Media Reviews this year?
Oh my goodness, my favorite part. Do you mean my favorite episode that we did, or just
Favorite,
overall thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, I really like to collaborate with you, Steve. You're just awesome. And every time we get together, we just have so much fun. And I think that we have so much fun with our guests. And I feel proud that we can make them very comfortable, so that they're really happy to talk to us. And it seems like every episode that we tape, we start out talking about one thing, and then we really get in the moment, and our guests are so comfortable that then we end up just going almost a completely different direction, which is just so wonderful and surprising. So I've loved that about every interview that we've done together.
You mean you go on tangents? Is that what I just heard?
I heard, you know what? That's it. It's a tangent.
Yeah, it's truly some jaw-dropping stuff have happened on Rebecca and I's episodes. It's been crazy some of the stuff.
Right. Be ready for anything is the bottom line, right? Anything.
You don't know what to expect, folks. It's what's so crazy about this. And this is kind of fun because, the very first person that I ever talked to that was like a big deal and was Rick Bennett of Gospel Tangents. Man, dude, I remember.
Steve, you've got to get out more, man. I'm telling you.
Well, I'll tell you, you were really cool because you put me under your wing early on. You were the first person. We talked on the phone for a couple hours, and I finally asked you to come on my program. And then Christopher Thomas reminded me, he said, "Don't you remember the Lindsay Hansen Park episode where Rick Bennett said, 'I hate evangelicals'?" I'm like, "Oh, that's right. He said that." So you found yourself an evangelical.
I didn't say I hated them. I just said they bugged me really bad.
That's great. So, Rick, it's been fun. Now, part of the reason is actually you were technically a host of Mormon Book Reviews earlier this year when we did my 100th episode with Christopher Thomas. That was a fun episode we had, and it was kind of different because you opened up, "Welcome to Mormon Book Reviews, where an evangelical encounters the restoration." But wait, let's talk a little bit about that, how much fun we had with that one.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, Steve, the one thing you're my, well, you and Chris, I don't know, I'm going to put you in the first place tie, 1A and 1B. You guys are my 2 favorite evangelicals. So it's just fun talking to people. There's so much divisiveness between Mormons and evangelicals, and it's nice to get out of the fighting and just be friends. That's where it should be.
Yeah, that's so important, is just to be friends and have conversations. That's what I love about your program so much too, is that, like me, you talk to a lot of different people from different backgrounds, and you can't be a hater if you're talking to people all the time and you're realizing, oh, they're human members of the human race as well, and that's been part of the bridge building aspect of your channel as well as mine. And so, this is really cool because actually Robert, after Mormon, my interview, or actually Rick Bennett interviewed me on my channel, you actually now are one of the oldest guests that I've had, and also a newly minted co-host here on Mormon Book Reviews, where we did an episode with Richard Saunders. That was great. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I think what influenced me was one of your earlier videos around how you reviewed some of your Book of Mormon editions in your bookshelf. So I was really impressed with that, and that kind of caught my eye, saying, okay, let's watch him for a little bit. So I was really impressed with that video. And then you turning the tables on Rick Bennett and you interviewing Rick Bennett. It was really interesting on how you originated the series as well. So
Yeah, it's been kind of fun. Of course, we did a special episode, a special collaboration on Mormon Book Editions about my very unique, one-of-a-kind Book of Mormon. And now it's people know about this edition. It's very rare. It's the only one that has pages 115 through 118 from the original Book of Mormon, given to us by my good friend David Hall. And that was fun doing all the research for that, wasn't it?
it was. And actually this the letterpress edition that was issued in 2007 is now one of my top favorite replica editions, as well as favorite editions of the Book of Mormon. So it's been interesting. My channel is Book of Mormon Editions on YouTube, and we showcase one video per book, and it's usually about 3 or 4 minutes for each video. And we kind of showcase both Salt Lake and non-Salt Lake editions, both present or current and historical ones. And it's been an eye-opener for me as well, kind of seeing everyone knows the Salt Lake editions and the current Salt Lake edition, but actually taking the time to kind of look at Book of Mormon printing over the ages has been really influential and beneficial in my life as well. So.
Yeah, and we're going to talk maybe about some future stuff that you have in store for your channel in a little bit as well. And so I want to bring on my guy, Nathan Smith, who's an initial interview we did was about PTSD and the mission field, where you told your story. And then you and I did some segments together. And then you and I then ended up doing a special interview with a couple of Mormon transhumanists. Perhaps you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got to interview Lincoln Cannon and Carl Youngblood of the Mormon Transhumanist Association, and that was a big deal for me very much, because I've known about them since about like 2011, and I've been following their work ever since I was like 17. So it was a real treat to be able to interview some of the people who have been so influential on my own spiritual development personally. And it was a two-parter. We split the interview in half, and the first half went on your channel, and the second half was the pilot episode for my own YouTube channel. So
and the name of it is? What's the name of it?
The name is Mind Makes This World. And it's been a lot of fun ever since that first episode, being able to just like make video essays and everything. I found that I had a deep love for that. And I think that interview was a really fantastic way to kick off just like what I'd like to accomplish with that channel, the kind of vibe I'm going for it. And it was a real treat for sure.
I don't know if you noticed that you've had a little upsurge in views of your Christmas episode.
Yes.
That's because I promoted it on my community page as well. It's a beautiful reflection of Christmas and the Nativity, very beautifully written and thought out. So I also want to check. What's the name of that episode?
I believe that one is Fan Your Inner Flames, and something along the lines of a former Mormon reads his old missionary journal. And thank you so much for sharing that, by the way. That was probably one of the more personal videos that I've done, and it was really cool to see it so well received. I got feedback from not only people I've never met, but people I served with as a missionary, and I think that not everyone fully understood what I was going for, and some people did, and some people were just really, really wonderful and pleasant about it. And it was just really nice to be so well received for that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Really is great. And then my final person is Valerie Hamaker, and you are the podcaster of Latter-day Struggles. And by the way, I'm sorry if I didn't get the name of your thing off the head. It's just doing this off the top of my head. So everybody, make sure you promote your channels like crazy on this. Valerie Hamaker of Latter-day Struggles. Welcome to the program.
Hi, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it's great because now Valerie and I have done 2 episodes, and it was so cool because I remember after our first episode, I'm like, Valerie, I want you to be a co-host with me because like you've got the chops. And then we had a little meetup in Independence, Missouri, and I made it a joint thing, meet Stephen Pinecker and Valerie Hamaker, and some people showed up, and that was kind of fun for you to be able to meet some new folks that way too.
It was very fun. Yeah, it was very fun to see you, and I believe I met Rick there as well. Yep. I think I gave you guys a ride to the restaurant.
That's right.
Yeah, that was fun. It was fun to meet you, Valerie.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, your channel, and of course your husband's an awesome dude. He's a sometimes co-host as well on your program. And So that's just been great. So, you know, and every one of you, now this is the thing, folks, Valerie, wait a sec, you had her as a guest, not as a co-host. Well, actually, Valerie and I are working on something, and we're going to start in a little bit talking about previewing 2023. We actually taped an interview with the legendary Carol Lynn Pearson. One of her books is The Ghosts of Eternal Polygamy, but she was telling me that the Association of Mormon Letters did like the top 100 books of Mormon books of the 20th century, and 2 of her books made it in there. So she's considered to be very important. Of course, she was on Oprah Winfrey and all these major programs. So there's a book about her husband dying of AIDS in the 80s, published by Random House. She's had an extraordinary story. So basically, that's a little side project that Valerie and I are working on, is to maybe do a series of interviews with Carol Lynn. So we're very excited about that. And I know she's like a hero to you. And we talked about in one of my episodes how what you read really affected you emotionally.
Yes, our second episode together. So you interviewed me and my husband first, sort of kick off, promote Latter-day Struggles. And then interestingly, I did one of my episodes just featuring her No More Goodbyes book. And Steve, we had a conversation about that, and I had so many people. It's one of my highest downloads, and coincidentally, through that whole experience, I kind of got lined up with Carolyn, and I was introduced to her, and we've become good friends. And one thing leads to another, and now she's going to be on a series with us. We already did one interview with her, Steve, right? And then I think we have at least one more, if not more, with some of her other books. So yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to have like an irregular series with Carolyn talking about various things. She's really an amazing woman with an amazing story. And her and I actually bonded on a Zoom call together. And so we feel a very close attachment to each other. And that's the thing about building relationships and meeting all of these wonderful people. And I have to say, this past year, with all of you being part of this story, I always tell people, said, this in one sense, this channel is for an audience of one. It's just for me. I'm watching the show that I want to watch. I'm making the show I want to watch. And whoever wants to join me, please feel free to join me. But I'm doing this because I want to talk to the people I want to talk to. I'm doing this for me. But it's also important because this channel is also part of a kind of documenting my personal faith journey that I've been on. And how much, I go on Mormon Stories, and I talk about what I love about Mormonism and how the Mormonism saved my life on Mormon Stories. That's crazy, right? But that's the thing. It's like I am a product of the Restoration. I am a product of Joseph Smith, and Mormonism saved my life, and nobody can take that away from me. So that's part of the remarkable part of this journey. And it's so cool. And, and this is the thing, Robert, I think having you on as a guest last year was so exciting to me. Now here you had maybe 140, 150 subscribers at the time. I think you were even bigger than me at the time, okay? And I had you on my program, and I just thought I was so excited. And I remember it was a last minute thing. We kind of filmed it at the last minute because we had a scheduling mix up, and it turned out to be a great interview. And what I love, and this is the thing, Robert's channel now has like over 500 subscribers. It's growing, and I know that I've been helpful in helping to grow the channel. And that's what I love doing, is helping people's channels. Like now, Rick Bennett, of course, he helped me. And so what I'm doing here is I'm paying it forward. He took me under his wing, and now and I knew how much it meant. It meant so much to me for Rick to help me. And so to me, it means a lot. And then I look at Rebecca. Here you go. I'm part of your book club, and there's maybe 15, 20 of us on there. Like, I'm the evangelical interloper. Hey, how's it going? And now you've been viewed close between your appearances on my channel and on Mormon Stories. You're probably nearing 50,000 views. Nobody knew who you were. And now you're involved in so many things, and your story has been told, and your journey has kind of been documented on this channel as well.
Yep, you're like a puppet master, Steve. You're just pulling all the strings, making things happen behind the scenes.
Yeah. And then that's the thing too, the responses I get from people, it's been really amazing. And so, the main thing is that as long as I continue to have fun, and this is what I want to tell, and I'm not giving advice to Rick Bennett because he's the goat,
brother.
But the thing is what I've learned is as long as you're having fun and this doesn't become a job, keep doing what you're doing. And then the second becomes a chore and you're miserable. Don't keep going. Just find another hobby, because life's too short to do stuff that makes you miserable. So I'll be doing this as long as God will have me do it, and as long as I'm having fun. That's the key thing. And then, of course, I think our smallest channel is Nathan's. We just helped get you started, and you've kind of taken a little sabbatical. I actually kind of think this would be a good time to maybe start talking about your channels. So Nathan, let's start with you. You have this new channel. It's been out for a few months, called Mind Makes This World. Why don't you talk a little bit about how this past year has been for you, and maybe talk about what we should expect to see from your channel in 2023?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me personally, I mean, 2022 has been an incredibly transitional year for me professionally, personally. Just a lot of things have changed, even just in the past few months. And I think Mind Makes This World sort of represents a lot about that. It's just kind of this way of trying to create for others healthy avenues of self-exploration, regardless of the context that they're in. So, I mean, I've done episodes on like explicitly religious concepts, on just explicitly secular psychological concepts. And I've tried to branch out a little bit more into like poetry and folk tales and things like that. For this next year, though, while I am taking kind of a bit of a sabbatical, I have been kind of workshopping for myself some ideas, and I have one video that's still in the works. It's a longer one, but it's going to be about the literary critic Harold Bloom and his Gnostic worldview. I found that he always described himself as a Gnostic, and then he never described too much in detail what that was. So a few years ago, I just dug around all of his books, and I kind of put together this essentially a catechism of what Harold Bloom's literary Gnosticism looks like. So I've got to finish that video, but that's something on the horizon. And I'd like to branch out a little bit more into offering like actual concrete techniques for people to, for instance, meditation. Essentially, I've had the opportunity to explore meditation for the past 8 or 9 years now, and I've picked up a few things. I'm not exactly a professionally trained guru or anything like that, but I'd like to share some of the things I've learned and the tools that have helped me personally. But I think 2023 is going to be an interesting creative year. I've got a lot of ideas in mind, and I guess we'll just see what happens one step at a time.
Well, just remember one thing that Harold Bloom said is that Joseph Smith is Metatron, right?
Yes, I actually covered that quite a bit in the video. He was a big fan of Joseph Smith and not at all a fan of the modern church. I think he said that he fears it would become an exotic Protestantism. So make of that what you will. But
yeah, I love Howard Bloom's works as well, and actually he's fascinating. He gives very fascinating perspectives on Mormonism, and yeah, kind of that's a cool paper. Look it up, folks. Look for Joseph Smith is Metatron on. You'll probably be able to find it online somewhere. And then, of course, Rick Bennett, this is like the man, the myth, the legend, the man that kind of helped me get this whole thing rolling, an inspiration for my channel, tell us a little bit about how this past year has gone for you, and perhaps preview some stuff for 2023.
Well, this past year, I made the big change where I went from splitting up my episodes into short episodes into longer episodes. So that's definitely been a lot more work, and just taken a little bit of a change for me. But some of the fun people that I've interviewed this year, in the summer I had some really good ones: Richard and Claudia Bushman, Matthew Gill, Paul Toscano, Terrell Givens, and then of course the real man, myth, and the legend, John DeLynn. So that gave me a big boost. William Davis, Locke Mackay, Bill Russell. It's been a lot of fun. So. And of course, this week I've got John Hamer, who is the man, the myth, and the legend, and so that's been a lot of fun. John's one of my favorite. I guess I can say he's my favorite Canadian historian because he's the only one I know in Canada, I think. But I don't think I'm leaving anybody out there. So as far as this coming year, Paul Toscano gave me a good idea. It's 2023 is going to be the 30th anniversary of the September 6th. Of course, Michael Quinn's already passed away, so I won't be interviewing him. But I do have an interview with Paul Toscano here coming up, reminiscing about his experiences with the September 6th, and we'll see how many more I can get. So that's one of the big things. obviously planning Mormon History Association, John Whitmer in Fredericksburg, MHA.
That's in New York.
New York. Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember, getting mixed up. And I'm actually here in January. I'm going to be hanging out with you, Steve. And
Yes.
hopefully, if Southwest can get their acting gear,
Yeah.
I'm a little worried. Hopefully, they'll be okay in a few weeks when I come out to Florida. And you've arranged to, I think, meet with an apostle for the Bickertonite Church. So I'm super excited for that. It'll be my first time visiting Alice Cooper's church. And I've got an apostle lined up with the Elijah Message Church as well. Although I haven't, that might be news to Adam Stokes, but he knows, he knows that I'm going to be talking to him. So we're trying to do it. We might have to do it on Zoom, but we'll see.
Okay, great.
I like the
became friends
in-person
with Adam
stuff. So
Stokes. I saw Adam Stokes gave you a bunch of books, so I said I'm going to friend request this guy because I need some more of some books. So it's great. So it looks like Gospel Tangents 2023. Looks like you got some great stuff lined up, and I'll of course see you in January, and then I'll be flying out to Utah in February, which we will get to in a little bit. But before we do that, there's this person who, of course, now we've met, Valerie Hamaker. We actually had the opportunity to meet at Sunstone, and we were both there, but we actually did not meet. But that's kind of where your channel kind of took off. That's when your channel became really the channel that it's become. Maybe just talk a little bit about this past year and what you see for 2023.
Thank you. Yeah, so I did speak twice at Sunstone in 2022. I spoke on the Jungian shadow and how that is connected to Joseph Smith's polygamy, or at least some theories and thoughts I have about that. And then I spoke about stages of faith development and correlated that with some of the struggles, the current struggles that we have in the LDS Church. And so I had already started my podcast before that, but after that, it really kind of exploded. And I would say we were over 100,000 downloads in less than 9 months. And it was a shock to me. It was a side project. I was already deeply involved in something else as a trauma and relationship therapist. And it was one of those moments where I've actually connected this to a Book of Mormon story where I think it was the prophet Alma that was preaching to people on this side of the hill, kind of trying to get them to listen. And then he was being swarmed on the other side and he kind of turns his back. I don't know if you guys are connecting the story, right? And he's like, okay, evidently we've got an audience over here that really needs me more. And so, so I actually shut down my other platform after this whole thing kind of went nuts. And ever since then, I have just been trying really hard to creatively meet the need of so many people I'm finding that my audience is people that are in and around the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that want to reconcile with the church. They want to have a healthy, whole relationship with the church. Now that sometimes means they want to stay active and inside of the church, and other times it just means that I kind of make a joke that you can leave the church, but it hovers. There's such a tradition, there's so much heritage, and so even if people sometimes leave, their partners are still in, their families are still in, they've got pioneer heritage. It's just really hard to escape, nor do we want to for the most part. And so as a therapist and someone who is really involved, I love working with people who have struggled with trauma. I'm consumed with the passion and the desire to help people become healthy and work through some of the very some tough issues that our church is going through right now around gender, sexuality, patriarchy, our complex relationship with science, with history. And I'm not afraid to talk about all of the challenging topics. And I feel like I've succeeded thus far in doing so in a very, very respectful way that advocates for folks that are really interested in becoming healthy. And so that's kind of what we've done. And and I'm making this up as I go. This is under a year old. As a therapist, I have done a lot of group work. And so I filled one group of interested people that wanted to do a support community. Then I filled a second group, then I filled a third group, then I filled a fourth group. I've run out of steam at 5 groups. And now I'm moving on to, I'm running those consistently, but I'm now deciding that maybe the best thing I can do in addition to what I'm actively doing with folks is I'm now working on some online courses where I can offer the content to people that can't work synchronously with me just because of my own limitations with my own time. And so that's kind of what I'm juggling right now. I don't know. I've got more to say, but
so what do you foresee 2023? What do you foresee what this year, what you would hope to accomplish?
Yeah, so well, there's a couple of things that I'm thinking about. I am a couple times a week, I drop a podcast. Some of them are really focused on spirituality, wholeness, health. I also tackle issues that people come to me as a therapist, LDS people, and I talk about what I see and how I work with these individuals. My husband comes on the show frequently. We've spent years talking about these things. And again, this was just sort of a like, hey, I need someone to talk with. Can you be on the show with me? And it worked out. It was like, wow, you're quite a great husband and co-host. This is handy. So he comes on quite frequently. And then I've also started having a few guests on the show. Carolyn Pearson, of course, was one of my first guests. I just had, let's see, who else have I had? I just recently had Jody England Hansen was on the show. Coming up, I'm set to be interviewing Taylor Petrie and Blair Osler's coming on the show. And then I've also been talking quite a bit and collaborating and planning a couple of episodes with Maxine Hanks. And
good, Maxine, yeah, she's been in touch with me. She's one of the September 6th as well.
Yes.
And actually, I hope to be doing something with her about the September 6th as well. And actually, maybe she might be wanting to do a podcast herself. We'll see, folks. But maybe she'll be on this panel next year. Yeah, that's great. So I think this is just a wonderful survey of what you guys are doing. And, Robert, I think I can say that I've watched every episode of Book of Mormon editions. And it's really easy because they're only 5 to 7 minutes long. Yeah. It's kind of fun because actually your longest one was when you had me on to talk about this edition. Of course, we talked about that, which was really cool. I got to be your first guest. Nobody can take that away. I was Robert's first guest on Book of Mormon editions. Maybe just talk a little bit about maybe some of your favorite episodes you did this year, and maybe preview for the audience what kind of editions you will be reviewing for 2023.
Well, as a review, I feel just so inadequate being around these your other guests. I'm super impressed with all of the success and the really good things that are progressing from them. I feel like, okay, I'm super academic and like I'm almost boring in terms of like, okay, factual and collection of the Book of Mormon. I started out as a Book of Mormon collector, and I really love the Book of Mormon, and it fascinated me that there were non-Salt Lake, I'm true Salt Lake, born and raised in, Salt Lake traditions. And so it was amazing that, Salt Lake doesn't have a monopoly on the Book of Mormon, that there are actually other people that have a very good passion around the Book of Mormon and makes them feel very good. And I'm really impressed with that. I love that the Book of Mormon outside of Salt Lake, inside Salt Lake, wherever you are, you can certainly draw to the Book of Mormon and really kind of feel a sense of awe from it. And so I've been extremely academic, but I really make sure that I kind of keep the testimony with all of the factual stuff that I do. So last year's been fun. I've reviewed a lot of editions of the Book of Mormon, and one of the things that I did is I did a review on the timeline of the printing of the Book of Mormon. So from 1830 with the manuscripts, the various 5 series that Joseph Smith did while he was alive, how Brigham Young took his 1841 edition from Great Britain into Salt Lake, how the reorganized the RLDS Community of Christ editions came to pass. There was a mention of the Bickertonites as well as the Elijah Messages. All of those have their editions, and it's been really, really fascinating reviewing those. And so I was really excited. The highlight for me is this year I actually had an opportunity to hold an 1830 original edition of the Book of Mormon for the first time. And I would really encourage anybody who has an opportunity to do so to actually feel one and hold one, because there's actually some electricity to it. And I was excited. Reed Moon in his bookshop in Provo has like a show and tell every couple of months or so. And he was able to kind of pass around an 1830 Book of Mormon. I've met with Brent Ashworth, met with Daniel Stone from the Bickerton group. And so really, I was really excited to meet so many good people and a lot of kind of heroes of mine. And so I still have various editions that I still need to review. But in going forward in 2023, I've got a list of individual specific editions. For example, Brent Ashworth offered to have me review Winston Churchill's copy of the Book of Mormon that he got from one. So I thought that was really cool. Just a couple of months ago, I did, Buzz Aldrin had a Book of Mormon that he autographed or inscribed. And so the individual specific editions of the Book of Mormon are now coming through. As mentioned, 1823 is the 200th anniversary coming up. And so a lot more people will be more interested in the early printings of the Book of Mormon. And so I'm starting to really kind of get my ducks in a row on specific printings. For example, we know where Emma Smith's 1830 edition is. And what's interesting is her 1841 edition is in a presidential library. And so it'll be really interesting kind of showcasing where specific editions of specific copies and specific printings are. The other one coming down the pipe, another group's going to publish that they have Frederick G. Williams's 1830 edition of the Book of Mormon that's been highly annotated, and all of the margins are marked and commented on from Frederick G. Williams's handwriting. And so after that gets published, I'll have an opportunity to review that. So it'll be interesting, kind of really focusing on the early printings and specifically 1830 editions as we get close to the 1823 200th anniversary. And then in a couple of years, we're just right around the corner of the 1830 2030 anniversary as well. So some exciting stuff for me as well.
So it's going to probably be the decade of Mormonism and the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
And we wish you Godspeed on your endeavor, Robert. I think that you have like one of the most coolest, awesome channels, because I love to do my Book of Mormon geek outs about every 6 months on my channel. And I get to wait and see what your weekly episode is going to be about. And what edition does he have this week? In which presidential library is that Book of Mormon in? Well, you'll have to tune in to find out, to watch that episode when Robert does it. Yeah. So great. Awesome. Well, Rebecca, of course, now you and I, of course, you do your podcast, Mormonish, and actually, let's talk about that briefly. Okay, we'll just talk about that, and then I want to talk
First, I have a question, Steve. Okay. Have you ever asked Robert our burning question about the Elvis Book of Mormon?
Yes, actually, Robert gave me an article about that Elvis Book of Mormon being a forgery and stuff like that. However, there seems to be more to the story. I don't know if you watched the Gaynor Brunson interview, Robert, but there apparently Elvis did have a copy of the Book of Mormon, and Elvis had questions about the Book of Mormon and spoke. Was it with Merrill Osmond about it?
Olive,
yeah.
Olive.
Gaynor told us that Olive gave him. Gaynor said he was there in Vegas when Olive handed the Book of Mormon to Elvis, and he said, "This is what Gaynor says. Oh, I need this for my daughter. I really want to read this and mark this up for my daughter, Lisa Marie." So it's an interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. That's going to be an interesting one. Yeah, check. Yeah, so we're gonna actually probably have Merle Osmond come on to talk about his interactions with Elvis Presley and the conversations that they had about the Book of Mormon. So perhaps we'll clear up a mystery, and maybe there's something more. It's more than just Mormon folklore. So that's always an exciting thing.
Very good.
So, yeah. And so, Rebecca, like I tell people, you just went behind my back and started a podcast without even telling me, called Mormonish with Landon. And you guys, of course, this comes out of the Good Book Club, Landon being a friend of yours. And maybe just talk a little bit about your podcast, a little bit about this past year, and then what we can see for Mormonish this coming year.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. When you said you keep doing something until it's not fun anymore, My problem is the opposite. I keep starting projects because I'm having so much fun and they seem to kind of morph into each other. So I originally started with the Good Book Club 2.5 years ago, when I kind of stepped away from the Mormon church. And I noticed that so many post-Mormons were avid and voracious readers. My background is in librarianship. I have my master's in library information science from BYU, and I worked in the BYU library for years. And so I thought it'd be really fun to have a place, a book club, where post-Mormons or anybody basically interested in reading all kinds of books through the lens of Mormonism could discuss, almost with the idea of, now we know what we don't believe, let's try to figure out what we do believe through reading. So that was 2.5 years ago, and we've been going strong, reading a book a month and having guests on and people all over the world. I mean, it's really grown, and it's really amazing and really fun. And our meetings are in a virtual format, and then we also make them available through a podcast. So you could look up The Good Book Club and you can listen to any of our meetings. We often have authors on, which is really fun. And from that, John DeLynn had always been trying to start a book club and had kind of stopped and started over the years. And so he asked me if I would help him kind of facilitate that. So I also sort of run the Mormon Stories Book Club, which is just barely getting off the ground. I should promote the books for next month, shouldn't I? So for the Good Book Club, we're reading, like I said, we read every topic. Neil deGrasse Tyson's Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. We're interested in all topics. We even had a field trip to a planetarium. So this will be our book for the Good Book Club in January. So for the Mormon Stories Book Club, put another hat on, in January, I was interested in what you were saying, Nathan, about meditation. We're reading No Nonsense Buddhism for Beginners, and we're going to have Noah Rashada on the end of January on a Mormon Stories episode, a book club episode. So it's been really fun to interact with all different kinds of people, readers, all different kinds of topics in both of these book clubs. So we have so many interesting guests on for the Good Book Club that I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have a place where we kind of cross promote and kind of use this content with these amazing people that we're interacting with. So with my The Good Book Club co-founder, Landon Brophy, we started a podcast called Mormonish. And the tagline is living a joyful life on the other side of Mormonism. And we have guests on, people that are, post-Mormons or maybe nuanced Mormons, and they're just involved in amazing projects and doing amazing things kind of more on the other side of Mormonism. So that's been really fun. And we've had some really interesting episodes. And like I said, we kind of cross, if we have a special guest on the Good Book Club, we also make it available on Mormonish. So coming up in January, we're going to have RFM is going to come on. Today we were talking about what he might possibly discuss. He goes, well, I want to talk about Stephen King. And I'm like, okay, you're a big enough name. I'll let you talk about whatever you want. It doesn't necessarily fit in with what we're doing, but sure, why not? Everybody wants to hear whatever RFM has to say. So we may have him on to talk about Stephen King, one of his favorite authors. At the end of January, we're going to have Alyssa Wall on to talk about her book, Stolen Innocence. And she's the one that sort of responsible for taking down Warren Jeffs. So just all kinds of different topics, and this is how I met Steve. He was one of our first book club members. He just contacted me years ago and said, would you mind if an evangelical joined I said, of course, anybody can come and read all together. So, and then in addition to that, of course, Steve and I have some projects and some people that we're going to have on in the next year or so, but I'll let you talk about that because I've talked too much.
Well, this has been, I'm having a blast talking to you all. It's really cool to kind of reminisce and then just to look to the future, because we're on the verge of a new year and it's very exciting. And of course, this has been, we already talked about what we've done with the channel this past year on our Christmas episode. So I kind of want to just talk a little bit about, first of all, got some great guests lined up to actually tape some interviews that are going to be posted next week for the January. One is with David Snell of Saints Unscripted, and that is the leading YouTube channel for Mormon youth, basically. And I will be a guest on that program most likely in February. And then I had Stephen
Cap Perry, yes,
Cap
son
Perry.
of the amazing Janice Cap Perry, absolutely.
Yeah, and she's written many very popular primary songs and stuff like that. That's what she's known for. And he, of course, has a weekly program on BYU Radio. And he came on our program, and actually, that, folks, is would you agree, Rebecca, a jaw-dropping episode?
It was jaw-dropping, and I need to watch the episode over to see what my face did during certain parts, because I try to be professional, but sometimes I'm like,
that's kind of, well, that's what this show's become like. And you know, it's so funny. I so often have guests come on my program and they're like, well, I wasn't going to talk about this, but, and it's like, I know that this is going to be a really good interview when they're going to talk about something they weren't planning on talking about. Always, it makes for an exciting thing because they're going to probably talk about something that maybe they haven't talked about before. So it's really a cool thing to get that out of there. And so that's kind of what we're doing. And I kind of previewed that I'm coming out in February. I'm going to be a guest on a few podcasts out in Utah, in addition to Leading Saints. I got about 2 or 3 other podcasts lined up that I'm going on. And then I'm also going to be doing some taping for my channel. But part of the reason I'm coming out there is, as of right now, we have booked a venue for February 13th, Monday, February 13th from 6 to 9 p.m. We booked a movie theater. It's called Broovies. It's one of those places where you can eat your meal and watch the movie. And doors open at 6 o'clock. Movie starts at 7. Q&A starts at about 8:15. And we're going to have Jeff Pingree, who made the movie, the award-winning movie, The Return of Elder Pingree. And of course, we've already had him on the episode, and you can rent that on Amazon. But more importantly, come to the screening this February 13th. And Rebecca, you helped get that set up. That was a really cool thing.
yeah, no, we kind of a couple of us stumbled across this documentary called The Return of Elder Pingree, Memoir of a Departed Mormon. And it's won multiple awards internationally, but it came out right before COVID. And so the audience that probably would relate to it most closely, which would be a Mormon or a post-Mormon, you know, someone in the Mormon landscape, it was virtually unknown. So I kind of started evangelizing online and brought it to Steve's attention. And it's a beautiful film about an elder who served in Guatemala, Jeff Pingree.
Yep.
And he returns to Guatemala just to kind of deconstruct the experience and talk to the people that he interacted with. And it's just wonderful. Like I said, he's an Emmy award-winning documentary filmmaker for other documentaries, and this one has won multiple awards. So, and he's wonderful. He's going to come talk to us and
this is the thing.
in the movie.
The thing is, I tell TBMs, I tell regular Mormon folks, if you want a faith promoting movie, you got to watch that movie. It's one of the most faith promoting movies I've ever seen, because he at one point even basically says, because he baptized a lot of people into the church, and he says in the documentary, these people's lives are better off because they joined the church. So it's really cool to have that convergence where, you know, like Nathan, you made the comment to me, we were doing a Zoom call. You said, Steve, you like to blur lines. Would you, you know, and this is what this channel does. It blurs lines. Is that right, Nathan?
Yeah, I think the word I used for you is you're a trickster, but like in a good way. I was reading a book called Trickster Makes This World that I absolutely did not poach that title from my YouTube channel, no matter what anyone tells you. But yeah, the idea that you've taken what I think have been for people some very hardline borders and boundaries in a very negative sense, in a very repelling kind of sense, and you've pretty brazenly crossed them in a way that I think has led to a lot of healing for a lot of people. Like, I don't think that I would have broken bread with a lot of the traditional Latter-day Saints that I've met since I've disconnected from the church. And I think there are a lot of people within restoration movements who probably wouldn't have interacted with each other. And Rick commented on kind of the historical hostility that's existed between evangelicals and Latter-day Saints. And I think that by perforating those borders and kind of showing how artificial they are, I think you've really done a lot to help build relationships that honestly wouldn't have been there otherwise.
Thank you. Yeah,
I like the wall breaking would be the better thing, because there's too many walls, and I love, Steve, that you break down walls. I try to break them down too, and that's where we need to be. We need to be wall breakers.
Love it. That's a great wall breakers. So maybe to the 2023 is the year of wall breaking, and we all in our own way can be wall breakers in 2023. And I think it's really important. And I think what's important is that what I love, see, all of us in one sense are doing the same thing. What do you mean that? Well, you're talking to everybody. See, Robert, he's talking, well, this way, there we go. He's talking to all the voices of the restoration, just like I am through his Book of Mormon editions. And then Valerie, you're talking to people who are, maybe at a crossroads in their faith, right? And they want to be able to be stay in the church any way they can, but also need the emotional healing through therapy. And it's just really cool what what we're doing here is literally, I think Rick got it, nailed it. I think we all are in one sense wall breakers. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I like that. I think if we could just be more open and curious with the experiences of each other, independent of what tribe we belong to or what we specifically believe, but really just try to be connectors of the human experience. I think that's what everybody wants. They want to feel seen. They want to feel understood. And I think that's what draws us to you, Steve, because I mean, honestly, when I heard you were so interested in the Latter-day Saint tradition as a Protestant, I mean, let's be honest, that's a little weird, right? I mean, that's kind of weird, and it's kind of great too, right? And so I think that is in some ways curious enough that it's like, oh, let's get to know this guy, and that's probably one of the reasons, other than the fact that you're just a delightful human, that people are drawn to you. So well done, my friend.
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know that I didn't pay any of these people, and you're kind of making me blush a little bit. But I just want to say I love all of you, and actually I want to kind of wind this down a little bit. But you guys here, you have a platform. Is there anything else here that any of you would like to say about yourself, your channel, anything else that wasn't covered in this conversation that you would like to share with the audience right now? No takers?
I have a question. It's not really responding to, it's a burning question I'm dying to ask Rebecca.
Okay,
because
great.
I spoke a Spanish-speaking mission, and I know that Bibliotheca stands for library, and you are a library person.
Yes, it's not my real last name. No.
Okay, I was going to say, is that your real last name? Because oh my goodness,
it's my pseudonym. Just because I run so many book clubs, and I have so many children that are on missions and still in the church and friends, and so I'm one of those people that kind of has a little bit of a double life. And so I just which now I revealed to everyone on Steve's show. So there you go.
Yeah.
No, I go by Bibliotheca. That's right. So,
okay.
But I was going to say, Steve, this has been so fun, this conversation and this panel. So interesting. I wish maybe you could, I don't know, come up with a topic for all of us to talk about, or just have, in the future. I, for one, would love to interact and talk to everybody again, just in some way. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, I think we all had some great chemistry here today.
Yeah, I think so too. That's what I mean.
Come to MHA, come to Sunstone, come to Whitmer, come to one of these conferences.
That's right. Absolutely. Come out to them. If you want to meet many of us, go to Sunstone, go to Mormon History Association, go to Whitmer. So that's a lot of great stuff.
And I didn't know that Valerie was at Sunstone, because me and Steve were hanging out totally at Sunstone, and I didn't meet you until
the meetup.
Was that Whitmer, or was that something else?
Yeah, the meetup we did in Independence. Yeah.
I hadn't met Steve yet. I'm still very much a new kid on the block, and so my going to Sunstone, I didn't know anybody. So yeah.
Well, I just want to preview a couple things here, folks. I'm going to be doing a couple book drawings. For the month of January, I've had Chris Van Kampen send me 3 copies of Rescuing the Restoration. This is a series of essays that's it's actually affiliated with Denver Snuffer and his movement. And it's very interesting because it's a series of essays where people kind of describe who is Denver Snuffer, what is the movement about, and it's a very fascinating book. So that will be January's book giveaway. And I don't know if Rick noticed or not, but somebody bought about 4 or 5 copies of my interview on Gospel Tangents the other day because he put them on sale. And I'm like, okay, well, he put them on sale. I'm going to buy a few. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving, this will probably be February's book giveaway. I'll be giving away 2 autographed copies of my transcript of my interview actually it's more me interviewing Rick on Mormon Book Review on my show, and of course this is also
Gospel Tangents.
Gospel Tangents. Well, it's a combo because it's Gospel Tangents and it's Mormon Book Reviews, right? So it's kind of a hybrid, and so we're gonna have a little fun with that, guys. Thank you so much for coming out, and I think that's a pretty inspired idea there, Rebecca. Maybe we do an occasional forum where we all hop on and have fun conversations. Before I let you all, does anybody else want to say goodbye or anything you want to add?
I'm just going to say see you in about 3 weeks, Steve. I'm coming your way. So
all right, folks, and come my way. It's so funny. The other day, somebody commented on YouTube, hey, I saw you at Culver's the other day. And this was not at a Culver's in Utah. This was in a Culver's in Florida. And I said, well, next time you see me, say hi, get a picture with me. So it's weird to be recognized in the wild here in Florida, as far as Utah as you can get. That's pretty fun. So this was really fun, guys. Robert, Valerie, Nathan, Rick, and Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having
Thank you
us.
so much for having us.
Yeah,
Good to
thank
be
you.
here.
And
Happy
just
New Year
remember-
to all of you.
Yeah, Happy New Year. That's right, because
Happy
this is a New
Year.
Year's
I have a
episode.
horn.
So there we go. Happy New Year. So this is the thing, folks. I just want to remind you, there's going to be links in the description to support the channel but via PayPal and Patreon, as well as our merch store, MormonBookReviews.com. You got the mug. I got the mug. So we got mugs there. So check out the merch store. And then, of course, Rick, of course, he's got a mug too.
I've got a mug. Nobody buys my mugs. I must not have any coffee drinkers. I don't know.
I bought one. So either way, they just say they're chocolate mugs. You don't have to say they're coffee mugs. Maybe you sell more that way. I don't know. Either way, so there's going to be stuff in the merch store there, folks. But the most important thing, folks, is, of course, Happy New Year. But also, remember, all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.